What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now, Back to the Past. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to take a look at Helldivers in 2023, a game that first came out back in March of 2015. This is actually a game that released on the Vita, which I forgot about. I don't have the Vita copy. I didn't play it on the Vita, but boy, oh boy, whenever I get a chance to shout out that gem of a machine, I have to do it. So I very much remember when this game first came out, and it actually really went into the title of this video where I don't think I liked it, or at least I don't remember. I don't have any really strong recollection of liking it or thinking it was amazing back in 2015. I know from the PlayStation game page, I guess, that I had played around 7 or so hours of it back in the day. I think that number's wrong. I don't actually think I played 7 hours. It was probably under that because I just wasn't that high of a level. And I remember putting it down, and I always thought I got this game confused with the game Alienation from Housemarque. I'm a big Housemarque fan, but they have made some not great ones. Matterfall, I believe, is one of theirs. Alienation. I love like their Next Machina and obviously Resogun and games like that. Housemarque obviously does some great games, but again, there are some bad ones. And I think, thought that Helldivers was Alienation because leading into Helldivers 2, and they're kind of switching up like how the game actually operates. I like what we've seen so far of Helldivers 2. I want to give the game a chance, even if it's going to be a little bit different, I would say, than the first one. So to lead into the second game, I thought, well, you know what? I had played it back in the day. I either own it or it's in my library. I mean, it's partially mine. Maybe it's a PS Plus game or whatever the heck it is. And I jumped back in 2023, and the game was honestly a blast. I was blown away. And, you know, I try when I do these titles and these kind of reactions, I'm not messing with you. I'm not clickbaiting you. It really is kind of my genuine like feeling of it. There's not audio recording, but I did play this game with a friend of mine, and I did say to him multiple times, wow, this game is really good. Like, this game is far better than I thought it was. I'm having a blast. Can we just keep playing this instead of whatever else was out at the time? I was really enjoying. And you know what? Even with the rest of August, and yeah, you know, we got Starfield, we got some pretty gigantic games. I might have to continue playing Helldivers 1 before, whenever we get Helldivers 2. Still no release date at the time I'm recording this. So let's talk a little bit about the game. You know, there's honestly not too much history with it. The team was relatively unknown. They had done a few games right before this. They released this again in 2015, and it did really well. You can play this game single player, which I do not recommend you doing at all. We will talk about that as the video goes on, but you can also play it cooperatively. You can actually do couch co-op, which I didn't know that until I just looked at the Wikipedia page for this game. You can actually do couch co-op. Obviously, you can play it online with up to 4 players, and it's actually a pretty cool feeling, like when you're in a match and you have online matchmaking on, and even if people don't join like in the lobby, when you're in the battlefield, right, like battling against things, and then all of a sudden somebody literally dive bombs, you know, from the sky. Maybe they kill you while doing it, or maybe sometimes they don't, and you know, you kind of get like reinforcements, like it's just another online player. I really like that feeling. I think it works rather well for this game. Obviously, Starship Troopers is a pretty big influence of it. You can kind of tell that immediately as soon as you play it, and that's kind of it. We're getting a sequel. Game did well enough. I don't think it's doing fantastic. I don't know if it ever did fantastic. There's still people that play it. That's actually what caught me off guard, is we're here 8.5 years later, and you know, I'm doing it for video purposes, and I also kind of wanted to just re-experience this game or even remember what this game was. But then there are a couple hundred, I think. I don't really think there's that many more than that, but a couple hundred people that are still playing this game and are pretty active, and they're very good. And you want the online veterans that have been there for years, you want them to join your squad, because then you just tear through things. So how does the game actually work? Well, I really like it. I like the repetitiveness. It's repetitive in some degrees, but in other ways it's really cool. So you have different factions, and you have worlds that kind of coincide to them. So you pick your different group, and this will be you versing like cyborgs, or you versing like the bugs, or Starship Trooper like. So you pick those, and then they scan planets, and each planet will have a unique kind of reward to it when you beat it, at least the first time. After you beat it the first time, and what I mean by that is you click on the planet, and there'll be missions, a couple different missions on different parts of the world. You'll drop in, you'll do it. We'll talk about that in a second. But when you're done, you get something from it. It could be an ability, it could be, something. And once you do it once, like for these veterans that have probably played this game 1,000 times, then it's XP. Then it's just all about leveling up and, syncing that into abilities and other things. So it's relatively simple, but each world goes up the difficulty ladder, and this game can get very challenging. I think the hardest difficulty we played on was medium, which I think is like a 4 difficulty. The game, at least what I saw, goes up to, I think, 15 difficulty. So we're about a third. We played about a third of the difficulty, and I thought that was more than enough because it is insane. Now, me and my friend, we were much lower levels. When we had help, we were, again, doing well, and we were by ourselves. We were struggling a bit because this game is actually very, very... And that is something I remembered, like going around the world and remembering to, like, call things in, which is really fun. Then I started remembering this game and saying, you know what? I never hated this game. I think I liked it. And that's hard to describe, like, my feelings right now, I guess, sitting here back then. Because as I was playing it, a few days ago, I was thinking, it had to have been alienation because there's no way I didn't like this game. This game is really good. And then I was starting to think, well, did I think it was too hard? Like, why didn't I put more time in? I mean, 2015, I've talked about it before. Really, 2020 is when I started beating games or playing games like a really good amount. So if it's a multiplayer game, putting a lot of hours. Before 2020, it was very selective. If you're Rocket League, Alex plays you quite a bit. But if you're something else, that did not happen. So Helldivers got the short end of the stick, but I had to have liked this thing because the game is very, very fun. So you pick the planet, and one of the things I immediately like is you pick the drop zone, right? You pick where you're going to land, and you'll see what you're going to have to do on the map. You'll see different kind of like flag posts, and you say, okay, well, those are capture things, and let's land kind of in the middle of everything so that we can kind of knock things out. So then you get in your pods and you go, and some of this I played with just my friend and me, so we never went in single player. We always went in at least with 2 people, and then sometimes we did 3. Sometimes, I think for some missions and maybe even the gameplay I captured, we actually had 4. We had a full squad, and we felt good. I thanked the people afterwards, said, hey, thanks for playing with me. Didn't tell them about the video or anything, but I was really having fun when you had the full squad up. So then you land and you go and you complete different objectives. There's not too many of them, honestly. It's a very small amount, but it doesn't get all that repetitive because it's just so difficult. Even the enemy variety is always the same depending on which kind of faction or region, I guess, that you pick, but it's always the difficulty spike. So they'll just throw more at you. They'll do a lot of damage. Friendly fire. So this is the thing that actually was talked about in terms of the actual game. They like their things kind of being difficult. Friendly fire is kind of a thing that they are either known for or they like to do, and boy, oh boy, do they do it. So you can hurt each other. There's no way of turning it off. You can hurt each other. Your weapons can hurt the other person. So if you put down a turret, sometimes putting down a turret is not even necessary because the turret will sometimes find the enemy. So say you put a turret north of you, and then an enemy is coming south of you. Well, if you don't kill that enemy quick enough, the turret's going to detect it, spin around to the south, shoot it, and it's going to kill you in the process. You die very easily, not just from the enemies in this game, and it does depend on difficulty, but even on some of the easier difficulties, you die quite often. And you'll either die, like completely die, only to be called back, or you'll be downed and you have to be helped up. Either way is still not the greatest thing, but where this game really shines, I think, is the diversity of not like your class, but what you bring in. So there's all different kinds of weapons. There's weapons that'll heal, and it's only for healing, but you got your primary, you got your secondary, you got your, I guess, abilities or like something that you bring in. So like I like the mines. That was something I was drawn to. The turret. And these are then things that you level up afterwards, right? You level up kind of in the waiting room or the lobby with either the research tokens you get, or obviously when you level up, you also get them. And it's really fun, like kind of planning, oh, okay, this guy's going to bring in a mech. Like this guy's going to literally have an armored core or an avatar kind of like mech suit. And so maybe, well, I'll bring in mines, and well, maybe you can bring in some sort of like missile strike. Let's try to diversify and handle the situation. Because when you get in there, I was talking to my friend, but anybody else that joined we weren't talking to. I don't know if you need full-on communication in this game. I really don't think you do, but it's not like the worst. Like it's helpful, right? You can plan things out. Okay, we're gonna go here, we're gonna go there. But when it gets tough, or it gets kind of like everybody's coming at you, it can get not really overwhelming, but that's, I think, when it's at its most fun. When you're going to the evac site and you're saying, okay, to the north, I'm gonna get some turrets here. I'm gonna throw and get some mines to the east so that they can't come from that way. We're clear, but you can step on the mines, so be careful. Don't go over there. It is a blast, especially in the harder difficulty, especially when the enemies are coming at you kind of hard. It's really cool to not even like pre-plan, but just like get to the area and then you just start throwing your little, they're not like grenades, they're kind of like just call signs that'll bring the thing down. Now that's a big thing that makes this game kind of unique, right? It makes it its own. So when you go in, sometimes depending on the map, you'll have a specific like call sign, and these are things you can pull up, I believe holding L1, and you put in the D-pad, you put in codes. A lot of this game is using code. So if you're trying to defuse a bomb, you'll put in a very long code. When you're trying to call for evac, you'll put in a code. When you're doing an outpost, you'll do a code. There's a lot of that. And then there's also the codes to get things. So ammo. And you start to memorize, like ammo, I started to memorize what the code was to get ammo. The code to like call somebody back from the dead. There's that code. And I think it's really, really fun because, again, there's something kind of special to getting to a location and then everybody's like throwing things out. You're holding L1, you're putting in this code, you're getting ammo, but then, okay, I'm going to chuck this like little bomb thing to the north and it's going to lay mines down. Like, it's just so much fun. Like, I'm genuinely serious when I talk about the reaction to this game. It's a blast. I really didn't think the game was this fun, and I don't know if like it deserved more because obviously it's had a long life, right? It's been around 8 years, and some people are still playing it, obviously very few, but it's also getting a sequel, and I hope the sequel does well. I mean, I'll tell you this right now, I'm going to be covering it. Before, I'd say like a week and a half ago, I didn't really care. I forgot about it quite often. I think if it comes out this fall, it's going to get absolutely buried. No matter what, it's going to get buried amongst all the other games that are releasing. But because I went back to Helldivers, there is no way I'm going to overlook the second game I'm in. Even though it's not going to be top down, I think it's more of like a third person kind of thing now where like the camera's behind them versus top down. I love it. You know, again, Starship Troopers in terms of kind of like the atmosphere and like the idea of it. But it always reminded me, you know, I mentioned Alienation, Housemarque. This reminded me of the Dead Nations of the world. Dead Nation, I love that game. But it reminded me of the top-down Next Machina, Dead Nation, a bunch of Housemarque games. I think that's what maybe drew it to me originally. Again, for some reason, I put it down, and then picking it up now, immediately, it's like, oh yeah, I'm totally in. So I had a blast. I really had a blast. It's not like all that long, but there's plenty of things to do. Like, each mission does not take that long, but there's so much because of the different factions, because of the different planets, and yeah, you can go back and replay it, get XP, but you know, as you're going to get better and as you're going to play with other people, well, you're going to probably do some more challenging worlds, which, number one, I haven't even seen yet, I haven't experienced. Maybe there are different enemies in those ones, so harder worlds, potentially newer enemies. It's just going to be more of a challenge, but the trick is you really can't play this game, I think, single player. So luckily I have a friend. I know some people don't have friends, or some people just find it, you know, hard to get in. And specifically for this game, you know, again, there's not a lot of people playing it. So if you want to go in and you're like, okay, well, to experience it at its fullest, I actually believe you want the 4 people. I can tell you, I think we did maybe 3 to 5 missions with 4 people. We played maybe 10% or less of our entire kind of thing I did for this video. We played with 4 people, and that was luck. And again, other times we got a third person, but this is definitely a game you want as many people as possible, 2 at an absolute minimum. And honestly, 2 people is not going to be enough to get you past like easy. Once you get to like medium or anything higher, there's absolutely no way 2 people can do that. So you need more for that. But I still think you can get a good amount into this game. The one negative, I will say, there is one negative, and it's something that actually happens right away. I hate this stuff. It's a different genre of games for me. It happens in these kind of games. I'm not normally into these kind of games, so I guess, you know, take what I'm about to say with a grain of salt, in that it's just not my thing. But I hate the idea that, like, when you complete the planet and it gives you influence and it's like filling that bar, and it's like the daily kind of thing, where a daily recap, I guess, right, where it's talking about everybody that's playing online and they have influence, and it puts it into this bar, and when you get the bar high enough, like, they'll give you a reward. I get that it's something engaged. Like, I guess I understand why they do it. I guess at the height of a game, it would be kind of cool, right? Because everybody's working together. You're playing it individually, you're playing it with groups, but then every day or two or whatever, because the community is literally playing the game, right? Literally beating worlds. The in-game kind of ecosystem, you're defeating like the bugs, you're defeating the cyborgs, so you get something for it. I guess it is what it is. To me, it takes up time. Like, you have to press X, you have to go through several menus, and where we're at right now with this game, there's not a lot going on. So it's like to sit there and to watch and say, okay, the bar is like 36% full. Like, we're not really doing much with it, right? At this point, because nobody's really playing it, those bars are not moving. You're not really going to get anything. There's really no reason to have those like daily reports. But I guess I'd give them kind of a round of applause that that stuff still works, or the game is still online. 8 years after the game came out, depending on what company you are, depending on what publisher you are, you might be shut down by then. Now, I think when Helldivers 2 comes out, I think the servers for one might be in some grave danger. But you know what? They are different. Like, they're going to be different. Maybe Helldivers 2 gets people into the series, and then they play the first game and they say, you know what, I actually like one over the other because it's a slightly different game. I hope it works. I hope people are going to get into Helldivers 2. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. I know, kind of odd game here, but getting ready for an under-the-radar game that will eventually release, whether it's this year or next year. Well, let me know what you think. Make sure, as always, you're subscribed to the channel, and I hope to see you all on the next one.